for June 23rd as drafted, signify with a thumbs up. Okay, we're good there. Next are the minutes for the July 8th special select board meeting. Draft minutes that were circulated.
I'll move approval of the July 8th special select board meeting minutes.
Second.
Are there any requested changes to the minutes as drafted? This was the presentation from from V-Trans and the project managers to the community. Hearing none, all in favor of the minutes, please signify with thumbs up.
I'll abstain. This is the 8th, right?
This is the 8th. You were absent.
Actually, I was absent too. I saw it later, but I didn't.
You did watch it later? Good. So I think you can, based upon that, you could probably still vote.
Okay.
Did you watch it as a recorded or on the local TV? As a YouTube or on the TV?
YouTube.
YouTube?
I think so. I mean, it was after the fact. It was the day after.
We said it was going to be available for watching. I just hadn't heard anybody who got on and watched it afterwards. So
That was a great presentation. It was really informative.
I agree. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah. All orchestrated.
I was pleasantly surprised that at least I think there was 52 community members that joined, something like that. So I think it was worth doing, and it was a lot of names that I recognized that are involved in community activities and stuff. So that's good.
Yeah, I was just going to say the one downside is that was the first Zoom meeting I've been to where you couldn't see who the other participants were and how many there were. So it was good to know that we had that many because you couldn't see them. So.
Okay. Next is citizen comments. Is there anyone who's on for something that is not in the agenda? Okay. Then we'll go to Chief for local management update.
All right, here we go. We're collecting a lot of reports the last 2 weeks. I mentioned this at the last meeting of non-compliance with the governor's orders. People just ignoring the mask thing, which brings us to a bit of a concern. We're starting to see a step up in, I guess you'd call it sort of vigilantism. There's a lot of conflict going on about masks and what's going to happen, and if you're not doing anything, we'll approach people that aren't doing this, and got some concerns about that. We're seeing that kind of stretch out to other areas right now. We've got a lot of disputes going on about different things. We're seeing an increase in weapon sales, and it's just, we got to try to keep the lid on this so it doesn't get out of control. So those are concerns we have as far as that goes. Our homeless population in the hotels is slowly being moved out. A number of them have gone back up to Burlington and to other places, to another hotel that's collecting them there. So our homeless population is going down. We have no homeless on the street. Every one of them is in housing. So far, so good. We haven't had any real issues in the last couple of weeks. Right now, we're not seeing any absenteeism due to the disease as far as in the police department. We've got no known COVID cases in Middlebury and haven't had any in a couple of months, which is good. I'm a little concerned about some of the cavalier attitudes that we're seeing out there as far as the no masking and the running around without masks, that could be subject to change. Concerning today was a report out of Manchester area of 30 people that went and tested positive on an antigen test. That's got to be confirmed with the PCR tests that are normally done with the nasal thing. So that shows you the stuff is still out there, and we're at a very, very fragile piece with it right now. It only takes 1 or 2 people to get this, and without people masking up, we could see a similar thing here. We've been getting a lot of calls, I have anyway, emails and calls about how effective are these masks going to be when we get all the students that come back. And so we try to put a lot of information out in the bulletins this week. I think every bulletin's gone out with something about masks, the effectiveness of a mask, how to wear them, how to maintain them, how to clean them, and things like that to try to at least bring the education level up a little bit. The governor today reiterated when he was asked that he really does not want any kind of punitive enforcement for any of these governor's orders. He's a little more stringent on the people coming in from out of town who are not quarantining, which we're starting to see some of that. I've talked with a few of the Airbnb folks who had some concerns about that and filled them in on the process for which they could comply with the order. It was encouraging having a discussion with that. So I think that'll be taken care of here in Middlebury. Let's see. I think that is about it. The student issues, of course, we've had at the MICE meeting last week, and we talked about that. The college really has an aggressive program to deal with that. And as far as students that are living off campus right now in several of the apartments, we've seen a lot of compliance. The students have not been the problem. And that pretty much concludes the report, unless you have any questions.
Questions of Chief? Okay, thank you, Chief. Next is Fred. Kenny, Fred's going to join us on update on the pandemic recovery efforts between the state and local regional efforts.
Good evening. Let's see. First, the report from the federal recovery team that did interviews in Middlebury. Middlebury was one of the communities that they interviewed for a needs assessment. That report should be on Vermont, should be coming out this week, and I'll send it around to everybody. And also somebody from that team from Northeastern University will be joining our out-of-town recovery team meeting on July 28th. Kathleen attends those meetings. Also, there'll be a visit from a community for the one of the governor's task forces. I forget the name. There's 3 different task forces. This is one on economic mitigation that Paul Costello from the Vermont Council on Rural Development chairs, and they're going to be doing a community. They're doing a community visit in each county between now and the end of the year, and the one for Addison County will be September 17th. And the Addison County Recovery Team will participate in organizing that. It'll be a virtual community visit. Middlebury had a community visit a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago, with VCRD, and it'll be a similar model, but a lot of grant programs have started up or are starting up. The grant programs at the Agency of Commerce and Tax are underway, but we're 8 days into their application period. They've received over 3,500 applications for into both programs, or into both portals. It's the same program for businesses that have one or more employee and have had business damage because of COVID. The applications to tax are for those businesses that collect trust taxes like sales and use and meals and rooms. If you don't, then you go to the Agency of Commerce. But in order to apply for those, you have to have at least one W-2 employee. So that's a first come, first served program, $140 million total. So I think that'll go pretty fast. The Agency of Commerce is also accepting applications for the set-aside programs that were a part of that same bill. There's a set-aside for women and minority-owned businesses if they're 51% owned by a woman or minority. They apply to ACCD, but there's a special pot of money for them. Outdoor recreation and arts and culture nonprofits also have applied to ACCD. but there's a set aside for those types of businesses as well. So those are all underway. If you know any businesses that have a need and can show a loss in at least 1 month this year compared to last year, they should apply to those programs. Other programs that are coming online very soon are a couple of different programs at the Department of Agriculture for ag and forestry. There's a micro business program that's going to be run by the CAPS, Community Action Program. So for us, that's CVOEO. They'll have their own application process. That's for businesses of 0 to 5, and the owner has to have a certain level of income. There is a program coming online for sole proprietors, or really for businesses that don't have any employees. If you don't have a W-2 employee, doesn't really matter how you're set up. If you're S Corp, a sole proprietor, or a partnership, that program will be available. That's coming up. There'll be an announcement tomorrow on that, and the portal for that will be open July 20th. And that's going to be a 2-week application period. They'll take all the applications for those companies, for those businesses. So that, there's 40,000 of that type of business in Vermont. So not all of them are going to get a grant. Then there's also grants for healthcare providers through the Agency of Health and Human Services, grants for childcare and camps, and through DCF. And as I'm sure you know, there's grants for cities and towns through the Agency of Administration. So most of those programs are up and running. Some aren't yet. They will be by the end of the month. We'll be posting a matrix of all the different programs for businesses on our website tomorrow, to try to help people make their way through all the different programs that are out there and where they should apply. And obviously we're available, and SBDC is available to help businesses kind of figure out which program they should go to, how they apply, and even if they need help filling out the application, we can help them with that. One thing, on most of the programs, the ACCD, the tax, those set-asides, you can only apply for one of those programs. You can't. So if you're an ag business, you can't apply to the ag program and to ACCD. You got to pick one. And you can't access, because it's all the same money. It's all from Federal CARES Act money. So you can only access one of the programs. So the trick is, which one, do you apply to, and do you wait and apply to the one that might be best for you? But that's something we can help businesses walk through. There's also $30 million. There's a lot of money for housing and homelessness, but just yesterday there was an announcement about $30 million for housing programs. That'll be $25 million of that is for tenants and landlords through the Vermont State Housing Authority to help catch up on rents so that people don't get evicted. And there's also a program for low-income folks to help them pay their mortgages, and that's through the Vermont State Housing Authority. So again, we'll have information on all these programs. There's a lot of information out there. ACCD, Agency of Commerce website, has the most up-to-date information every day, but we'll be posting more information on our website, and have this matrix that I made up for business resources posted tomorrow. So that's it with all the grant programs, unless anybody has any questions. If not, do you want me to just dive into the loan program suggestion?
Go ahead, Fred.
Okay, no questions on the grants? Not seeing any. All right. So I'd sent, there was a chance throughout all this process with the legislature that they were going to create a statewide fund using all the revolving loan fund money that was around the state. That some municipalities have, that regional development corporations have. They're going to try to aggregate it, pool it together to provide low interest loans long-term low-interest loans to businesses, but they didn't end up doing that through the legislative process. They ended up doing all grants, which grants are great, but not every business is going to get one. So I had suggested to Kathleen that maybe we look at having Middlebury set up a revolving loan to do this, keep the funds in, and what we're talking about are the CDBG revolving funds that you have available, not the MBDF money, just the CDBG money that you've got that revolve back to the town. And one of the allowable uses of that money is a revolving loan fund for businesses. So you could keep the funds in a town account and we could help you design a business revolving loan fund, and we could administer it for you. We do that now for the town of Heinsberg. They have a revolving loan fund. They have it in their own fund, and we help them design and stand up a loan program with guidelines and parameters and criteria and everything, and we administer the back end of it. So they do their own process to approve businesses with a loan committee, but then we do all the back end, loan servicing and collections and all that end of it. So that's one option. Another option would be that you transfer the funds to ACEDC, and we do the same thing. We would administer a revolving loan fund for you, using whatever guidelines you want to set up for a revolving loan fund for businesses in Middlebury. A third option would be you would transfer it to us and we would combine it with our revolving loan fund. We have two. We have one that we administer ourselves that has no strings attached to it. We have a separate one that came from money from USDA that USDA loaned to us. That has very specific purposes and uses that we have to go by, and you have to get approvals from USDA and such. But we could combine it with our revolving loan fund to have a little more money available, and make that available either for just Middlebury businesses or for Addison County businesses. So several options to look at. Another question, regardless of which option you go to, is do you want to quickly set up something that's available for COVID relief for businesses, or do you want to just set up a regular revolving loan fund with normal criteria for businesses, normal lending for business growth and expansion? So a lot to consider there. Kathleen suggested that maybe you assign this to the Middlebury Economic Health Committee, which I could reconvene and bring just this question to them and come back to you with a recommendation. And depending on which way you want to go, we'd like to have that direction at least. But based on that, we could provide you with a recommendation and guidelines and criteria for our revolving loan fund, depending on which way you want to go with what direction you want to take with the revolving loan fund, if at all.
Questions of the board? Victor?
Well, this is something I'd really like to study, and before going any further, and I think considering the various options that Fred has defined and so on, this really requires some reflection and thinking and considering what other options we have. And I'd like to hear from our planning officer as to how this might work into her. She's working into a master plan for the downtown. So it would seem to me I'd just like to hold on to it for a while and have an opportunity to review all the options.
Heather?
So the only thing I really feel strongly about is that I would like it to go to Middlebury businesses rather than, not that I have anything against the rest of Addison County, but because it was Middlebury money, I think I would really like to support Middlebury businesses with it. So whatever we decide to do, I think I'm okay. I think I'm probably more in favor of having AC, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, have them administer the loan for us rather than us trying to stand up a loan committee and try to determine, what the parameters are. I think you guys have more experience in that than we do. It would be nice to maybe review what those are beforehand. And then the only other question I have is, if we decide at some point in the future that we have some other use or want to do something different with that money, is it possible to get it back?
I mean, we can set it up whatever way you want with whatever, whatever you want to do with the revolved funds. We've loaned over $5 million since we started a revolving loan fund to over 100 projects all over Addison County, obviously mostly in Middlebury, but we've done, we've done this a lot. We have a lot of experience with it, and that's how we keep ours going. It revolves back around. You try to be as careful as possible with the lending so that it revolves back. With our kind of revolving loan fund, we're a lender of last resort, so to speak. We're supposed to be gap financing, and a town revolving loan fund is even more that way, depending on how you set it up and the risk that you want to take. But most of them revolve back around, and you have that ability to either relend it or establish another kind of fund, take the money that revolves back around and put it back into something else. We could give you have the Middlebury, the Economic Health Committee look at this, give you a recommendation on a couple different options and an actual, language of revolving loan fund criteria, depending on how you want it set up.
Victor?
Now, if we were to turn the money over to the Addison County Economic Development Corporation, your predecessor in your position used to say that she didn't do retail. Retail is a rather important part of our local economy, it seems to me. And I would certainly not at all be inclined to part with this money if it meant that our retail operations in town would not have that money available to them.
Just to be clear, even if you transfer the money to us, it's still yours. I mean, we're just acting as
you'd be an agent.
I'm sorry, agent. Yeah, we're a trustee of the funds for you, and we'll lend it out however, in whatever way you want. I think what my predecessor meant was, if she was speaking of our revolving loan fund that we capitalize with the USDA money, that's one of their rules. And it's just not a sector that we're normally engaged with, although that has changed a lot in the last 6 months. We're engaged with every kind of business, helping them through COVID. But, if that was a sector you wanted to lend to with this fund, that would be your prerogative.
Other thoughts, questions from the board? Heather?
Fred, so once we make a decision to, let's say, transfer the money to you for administering, how long would it take to be able to money?
Or so to get everything in place.
So that's pretty.
Once you make a decision on the structure, and we actually have, a lending guide and everything based on what you want to do. Once all the decisions are made, it would take about that long.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just clarify that, Fred? That would be when you would be prepared to lend qualified recipients, correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get all that.
that's when you would be prepared to lend to qualified recipients. You're not necessarily automatically lending that fast because depending upon how we condition the funds, you may wait 6 months for people that actually qualify.
Absolutely. Yep. That's when we would be ready to lend. But then we'd have to generate deal flow with through your offices and ours, generating, marketing it and making it known it's available and what the criteria are, what the qualifications are. And hopefully, the timing would be just about right for when we're starting, hopefully come out of this, and people might be looking for loan funds, financing.
Yeah. Does the board want to ask Fred to get with the Economic Health Committee and bring us a proposal? I think we have a little bit of time. If we are going to put the money into this type of use, I would think we'd want it prepared for as we're coming out of the bridge construction. So we should set a timeline for ourselves to make a decision within the next maybe 2 meetings from now. So that gives ACEDC time to draft of some lending rules and whatnot for it if they're going to be charged with that.
Brian, just to note that I heard from Nick Ardom this afternoon, and he has asked us that staff investigate what other uses we could put those revolving loan funds to, whether it be for housing, infrastructure, or some other type of community development project. So I just wanted to put his idea out there that he has some questions before going forward.
Victor?
Yeah, I'm not ready to ask the committee to give us a recommendation. I'd like them to review options and comment on them, but I want it to be more open so that the select board can decide how best that these funds can be used for Middlebury businesses, obviously.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I misspoke there because I can tell that the board wants to deliberate over this, but if they were to give the money, how they would utilize it in a lending fashion, if we're going to use some of those monies for lending, it was my question that I would pose to that committee.
All right.
I think I would be okay with asking them to start that work, because I would be curious to know before I made a decision how it, what it looks like and how it works. And, we're just asking them to do some work on it. I think I would be okay with it.
I think Nick's point, though, that the town staff may also have some ideas as well.
Absolutely.
And therefore, I do want to leave it to the committee to make a recommendation that then we would consider. That's why I want to keep our options open. That's my main concern.
I understand, and I think I agree. I just wonder if the committee could give us some more input onto how, like Brian just said, if we gave it to the Economic Development Corporation, how would it? Do we have the what does the program look like? What some more details around how we give them, maybe that's what they can make recommendation on. I don't know. That's
well. This is the economic. The health committee is the town of Middlebury committee, not an Addison County committee.
right.
these are town of Middlebury funds, and I'm not opposed to supporting other businesses in the county, but I think we also have needs in this town, and that's why I'd like to have, I think, Nick's point that the staff of the town may have some opinions how this could be used, and we should hear from them as well as just hearing from one committee.
I think we needed to charge them both. We should understand how, I think there's an agreement that we want to use the funds for Middlebury, whether it be Middlebury businesses or Middlebury development project. And I don't think that we're locked into using all the funds in one particular manner as well. And so, Fred, I'm going to ask you if you could, whether you need the committee, or if you could sketch out for us how that would look, what types of businesses would this help if we did lending, and what kind of terms potentially would we be looking at offering on that, and the number of businesses that this might be able to help, so that as we look at these other options and challenge our staff to say, how else could it be used to pursue some community development, especially as we fill some empty storefronts downtown. Where is the best use of funds, and how can if you could help us with understanding how that can help potential businesses coming into or growing here in Middlebury, I think it would be helpful to the board.
Certainly.
Okay.
Yep. And which meeting?
The meeting after the 28th. We're check-a-block full for our next meeting.
Yep. So that's August 8th or something.
Sure, Kathleen will pop up with that here.
I'll figure it out. All right.
We'll get it to you, Fred.
August 11th.
I have the direction.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's August 11th is the next meeting.
Okay. Yeah.
Next is nominations to appointed boards, committees, commissions, and official positions. And in our packet, we have a full sheet that Kathleen did, or maybe Chris, of the 2020 board and committee appointments. And you'll see it's color coded neatly. So the ones in brown are the ones when we went to actual rotating 3-year terms, so that we could ensure that there was opportunities for rotation. The ones that are in brown are the ones that are still within that 3-year term. The ones that are in blue or yellow are either, the blue is ones that are not seeking reappointment, and yellow seeking reappointment, and the ones in, I don't know what color that is, pink, are new applicants seeking appointment. So with that, are there any questions on that first? And then I'd like to open it up. We have a number of candidates that are here, have joined us, and I'd like to give them an opportunity to speak once I get to that point. But are there, from the board point of view, any questions or comments here?
Comment, Brian. I had, just so you know, I had asked Kathleen earlier today if in the future we could see how many terms each person has served for each appointment, just so we can have an idea of maybe rotating new people on if somebody's been serving for a long time.
Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to scroll down through, and I think your names are all here. So, see Eric Remsen, he's new, seeking appointment. Eric, would you like to say hi to the board and just make a couple comments?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Eric Remsen. I applied for a couple of different committees, infrastructure, planning, and then the position on the malt board. I'm an educator kind of by training, but have also recently taken over for Laura Sermily as the coordinator of Safe Routes to School at Mary Hogan. So kind of have an interest in kind of, I guess I have an interest in kind of, you know, improving, continuing to improve the town of Middlebury. And so, yeah, I'm kind of interested in all three of those positions.
Okay, Eric, thank you. Next, I see Mark Welch. Mark?
Yes, can you hear me?
Ken.
Okay, so I am currently the zoning administrator for the town of Salisbury, and I don't know how it works in Middlebury, but there's a total lack of ability to appoint a DRB clerk. So I'm also the DRB clerk currently, by default, not by choice. Anyway, I'm applying for a position on the DRB. Only because I know how zoning works, and I think it'd be a quick study for how the zoning issues would happen, and would offer my expertise in that area for you.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Hello, members of the Middlebury Selectboard. So my name is Kyle Mitchell. I applied for 2 positions to be appointed to. So first, the Middlebury Sports Commission. So I will start off with some basics. So I have experience with being on boards in different levels. I am an alternate on the Parks and Recreation Committee for the town of Middlebury. Some of you may know. It's been a quiet role, but it's been a very educational role, and really appreciate that opportunity to serve. So I have experience with agendas, board operations, and continuing to work on different presentations and board documents and serving the greater community. I am educated and full of knowledge in regards to sports. And typically the Middlebury sports atmosphere and some of the technical work that goes into that. In terms of the other one, I applied for the Middlebury Community Television. So I have experience with filming and all that. I also have appreciation for filming. I think it can be spectacular, especially when it's community oriented. So I have experience on all different levels, as I said, from being on a board to being that chair, being that basic board member, general member that is, and physically doing some of the activities or work that's involved that the board is made of. So I look forward for that opportunity, and I thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Kyle. I see Carol Harden. Carol?
Hi, I'm Carol. I've lived in Middlebury for 5 years, and I think it's time for me to do more for the community itself. In this time, I've had some ongoing service nationally and internationally. My expertise is in water and water resources and fluvial geomorphology, physical processes. I'm a trained physical geographer, and I have retired from a position as a professor of geography. I was at the University of Tennessee. I've applied for the Conservation Commission, which is the one where I think I could really put my expertise to use for the community.
Thank you, Carol. Okay, I'm not sure if I'm missing anybody. I I see Hannah Horse on here. Hannah, are you joining us for this or just to?
Hannah is joining us for the discussion on the police issue.
Okay.
And I think that Fred Dunnington is here to talk about his interest in helping us out again.
Well, Fred, come on.
Hi. Yeah, I thought I'd offer my services. As you know, I'm in retirement. I've served the town for 32 years and been retired happily, trying to stay out of trouble. And I figure the August positions of town agent and town fence viewer is a way to do that, following the traditions of Walt Calhoun and Tom Grohl. If the board wants to know anything about these positions, I did some research into them and just wanting to serve. I hate to see positions go vacant.
Are you still winding the town clock?
No, I found someone to succeed me on that. I also believe in term limits.
Okay, well, thank you, Fred. Okay, I think we've got everybody. So in past years, we have nominated everyone who has applied, and then at our next meeting, we will finalize the appointments. If that's still, if everyone in agreement with that, I'd seek a motion from the board.
Can I ask a quick question first before you do?
Of course.
I wondered for Eric, is he still on? With the interest in the multiple committees, are you interested in being on all three committees at one time? Are you interested in one or two appointments? And if it's one or two appointments, would you just identify like what your, not that I'm making any promises, but what your like first, second, third choice would be?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think probably all three would be a little much. I'm part-time educator, part-time stay-at-home dad, so potentially could manage two. Although if there are other applicants, I wouldn't, not looking to serve on multiple ones. But I guess, in terms of interest, I think infrastructure might be the top choice, and then I don't know. It's kind of a toss-up, I guess, between malt and planning. Maybe I'd lean towards malt first, and planning as the third of those three.
Thank you. Can I ask one follow-up? When related to infrastructure, what is your what's the topic that most interests you in infrastructure?
Transportation.
Okay. Thank you.
Pleasure of the board.
Move to enter into nomination all individuals who have expressed interest in appointment in 20 board.
I'll second.
Okay. So we have a motion to nominate all the individuals who expressed an interest and seconded. All in favor signify with of supporting that, signify with a thumbs up. Okay. All right, well, thank you all for joining us this evening, and on the 28th, we will be finalizing our appointments. Next is discussion on ideas and timing for a public engagement process regarding the recent letters received calling for defunding of the Middlebury Police Department as part of the national movement to address systemic racism. And since Hannah's joined us for that, maybe I'd invite Hannah to make comments now. You there, Hannah?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Hannah Horace. I'm representing just our group of concerned citizens. And I just want to thank you all for recognizing us. At this time, we're still working to consolidate as a group and organize before we go public with more things. So I'm very interested and excited to engage with you guys, with everyone, further on this. At this time, I don't feel that we are necessarily ready to engage publicly. I invite Jason to follow up on that if he wants to add anything there.
Hey there, I'm Jason Kay. It's nice to see some familiar faces I haven't seen in quite a while. Yeah, as Hannah was saying, we have a group that is just recently formed to explore how to address systemic racism in Middlebury, of which defunding is one potential component. Yeah, at this point, as Hannah said, we don't have a proposal or anything specific to discuss at this point, but we are certainly eager to have these conversations when we're ready. You know, of course, our group is certainly not spokespeople for the larger movement. We're just considering what these issues mean to us. There is a focus, I think, maybe from the letters that have been received on defunding, and I just want to say that is a complex strategy in and of itself, and certainly requires clarity and context, and as well just systemic racism in general. I think it's pretty obvious when overt acts of racism occur, and I think for white people there can be a lot of subtlety in the systemic aspect of things. And yeah, we just wanted to say hello and introduce ourselves, and we very much look forward to having further conversations with the select board, with town departments, perhaps in smaller groups, maybe more one-on-one conversations. You know, I guess my final comment here is that I get kind of torn between whether this issue is simple or complex. I think it's both. There are some elements, the moral aspect, which is simple as simple can be. And of course, the history of racism in this country and how it rears its head today is quite complex and can be hard to see for some folks. That all said, we are just eager to have more conversations. This is certainly ripe and crucial territory to continue to explore.
Thank you. Kathleen, I haven't heard anything from the college lately. Have you gotten anything about what kind of a process they're doing up at the college?
I have not.
You haven't heard anything?
Well, they have their own problems, which are fairly substantial, but I think they're trying to work them out. I think this is a very important question, and I'm glad I think Jason puts it in a context. I mean, we're really talking about the nature of civil society. And I think also there's no question that there is endemic racism in this country. It's been in it from the very beginning, in its founding. And I think it would be very healthy to have a discussion, a community discussion of what we can do to stop I mean, the racism is very deeply embedded in our institutions, and I think to put it in that context and to consider it, that it's very timely, and perhaps we can, as I said before, maybe we can have another great awakening and perhaps root out this evil, and I would like to see that happen. But I think it needs to be a thoughtful process that we engage in, because we're talking about remaking our society, and I think this is a proper thing to discuss, and now is the time, I think, to do it.
I just have a quick question, Brian, and I know this is really early on, but obviously select board meetings are really tight with agenda items, and we go through lots of things, and obviously a topic like this, every once in a while for 10 or 15 minutes is not worthy of what we want to try to accomplish. So I think the first thing the select board should talk about is how we do this. And I'm sure we've got experience in doing this with other issues, and I don't. So for me, understanding how we do it, how we go, where do we do, do we have committees? Do we have another board? Is it meetings? Is it whatever it is? I think I'd be curious about how to proceed with the select board under those.
I guess that was why I was curious if the college, it might be worth talking to an organization that's maybe better geared for this type of a discussion, has better representation across the organization, for us to lead that discussion, and an all-white group leading that discussion just doesn't seem to me to be representational, and I'm not sure that it does anything other than check the block. So,
Brian, I know the Congregational Church is obviously having significant discussions like this also, and the first thing they've elected to do, and I apologize, I can't remember the individuals' names, but they're having 4 training sessions for anybody in the church, just give background and understanding the issues and what's taken place, and after that, everybody who receives this background, then our church is going to start looking where the church needs to go to address this. That might be something that might be interesting. I feel strongly, like Victor does, and like most people here, that we have a problem, but I don't know how to proceed forward with something like this. I just know who I am and how I've lived my life, and I think it would be probably a great idea if we engage somebody like the church is doing to take us through some type of training process, so we better able to understand and to be able to facilitate and move forward.
Well, there is some expertise at the college, I think, that we could enlist,
That's exactly where this is coming from.
And I think I know a few of them.
would the board be interested in us reaching out and see if we could get maybe a training session for the board, or a speaker to talk to the board and talk us through maybe how this manifests, and ways of educating and promoting equality, and the things that we might be able to do at a town governance level?
I would certainly support that.
Yeah, sounds like a good way to go.
I would be supportive too.
I support the idea in general. I think it comes down to what kind of training we're talking about and with whom. I think are we looking for somebody to help guide us in terms of how to have these conversations, how to talk about race, what racism is. I guess I'm not really sure exactly what kind of person we're looking to add to this discussion.
And I probably none of us are right now, but it's a good place to start from. And, you know, I could obviously start to see what our church is doing, and I plan to be involved in it, but haven't yet. But those are good questions.
I think the idea of getting someone that can help us identify things that a town government can do specifically would be helpful, but maybe not. I don't know. I'm kind of in the same boat as what Dan said. I'm not really sure where to start and where to go. So I would be curious to know what as a town body we could do differently. Anyway.
For Hannah and Jason, has your group found other models or other municipalities that are further along?
Yeah, we did a group exercise where we collected data from across the country in terms of rural towns, urban cities, basically as broad of a spectrum that we could to see what has been going on and what actions have been taken. So we have collected a lot of data regarding that, and we are certainly brainstorming as a group how that would apply to Middlebury in all of our specific things that go on here that are specific to our town and not necessarily the rest of Vermont even. So we have been looking into that, and that's kind of what I was referring to, where we're not ready to dispel plans for that, but we are very much working on it.
Victor, you had your hand up?
Well, I think it's something very fundamental, and therefore not talking about training ourselves. It's a matter of enlightening ourselves. And this is a long and shameful heritage, the heritage of racism. And it's not something that you can sort of deal with by having a few training sessions. It's a matter of being enlightened and having some understanding and considering the purposes of civil society. That's where I think you may get some expertise from the college. And it's not a matter of having training sessions. It's a matter of really looking deeply into this problem. It's a long historical problem. I mean, it goes back to the founding of the country. We're not talking about something new. Therefore, I think we need to enlighten ourselves. And I think maybe a session where we could get some people who can inform us about this and give us a perspective. And then as the select board, we may want to come and talk among ourselves and see what measures might be taken.
I guess the only thing I would say is it's not unique to US either. So it's, I think as people become more enlightened, the society becomes more enlightened, and so racism and prejudice have been manifest in so many societies since the beginning. So I'm not sure that we can condemn our own society just because it was there, but we owe it to do better now.
Well, we understand what's right, and we can aim for it. And that's what I think we want to do.
Well, let me and Kathleen and Heather brainstorm. I think, okay, Jason, I'll get with you in 1 sec here. I think between us brainstorming, maybe reaching out to the college and Jason and Hannah's group communicating with us as you identify maybe some actions that other communities are taking that that appear to be positive strides. If you could pass those on too. I think we're certainly in the phase of brainstorming right now. And I hate to just create a committee for the sense of a committee. So, Jason.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I appreciate hearing from folks that understanding that this is a very deep rooted issue, and a training or a committee, of course, by themselves aren't going to fix much. The kind of questions or the kind of sentiment that I've been hearing is, what do we do now? And the good news, it's actually tragic news, is that people have been working to dismantle systemic racism for 400 years, since the first people from Africa were stolen and brought over to this geography. There are a number, probably nearly limitless, trainings and workshops and discussion groups and reading material. There's plenty of territory, well-worn territory, when folks are beginning to look at this issue of systemic racism. And so I appreciate the opportunity for Hannah and myself and our group to put together some resources that we have found helpful, and that we might that could also be helpful for the select board as well. Ranging from readings or workshops, or even certain folks to help take the select board take these good steps.
Okay, thank you. And if you could share them through Kathleen, it would be great. You're familiar with that, Jason. So, Laura?
I just wanted to say that I was impressed that you were having the discussion tonight, that's a very good measure in itself. Just the fact that you are trying to plan for what should be next. And the other thing that occurs to me is that you do have the Public Health and Safety Committee. And I don't know to what extent they're engaged in this conversation, but I would think that they could be. And I do know that we've had a model with community conversations that have been led very successfully that could be coordinated with the college. So that occurs to me as another step that could be taken. And as Dan said, the faith communities are very engaged in this work right now, and they're having book discussions and just trying to stay awake in every way that they can. And so the other thing I would say to the select board is, as you consider filling for future positions, that I've heard that we need to be more proactive in recruiting for diversity. So that's just something I think that's important to keep in mind as we look at our committees and our boards. So I just wanted to say that. And again, thank you for having this conversation tonight.
Thanks, Laura. You've always been a good voice for that. And so appreciate you joining us tonight. As we continue, I think we'll continue to mull through this, but we've got a couple places maybe we can seek some ideas and guidance on how we can engage our community and be positive leaders throughout the community and trying to ensure maximum I guess just educating people that even, I think some of us, I know even myself, that I was surprised with some of the articles that I read in the Addison Independent. And so, even when you think that it doesn't exist in your own little community, maybe you're surprised that it does. So I think it's for us in our community, if we can continue to educate as leaders, maybe that's something that we could do. And how we do that, how we establish some standards is something we'll try to bring some ideas to the board on. Let's move on then to we need to approve our order regarding the placement of the temporary stop sign. Chief Hanley, you still with us?
I'm here.
Okay.
The little mouse wasn't working on the button.
Any comments on that stop sign?
Yeah, we approved, or you approved, to have the stop sign put in place, but we have to have a legal document to make it enforceable. So really all you have to do is just take an action, ordering, and that's really the word you want to use when you do a motion, ordering the placement of the stop sign for a specific duration for temporary purposes to deal with the issues that we have now with traffic rerouting. And when that is done for the minutes, I'll get a certified copy of those minutes and I'll attach them to the ordinance in case we have to use it in the traffic bureau.
Okay. Pleasure of the board.
Sorry, read the motion. In accordance with the Article 12 of the Town of Middlebury Ordinance for the regulation of traffic lights and traffic signs, I move to order the placement of a temporary sign for northbound traffic on Seymour Street at Seymour Street Extension to manage increased traffic volume due to summer construction of the bridge and rail project. The order is effective July 14th, 2020 and will expire in 90 days.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments on that? This is something that we had taken action on several months ago when we were looking at the traffic flow plan. Okay, hearing none, all in favor, thumbs up.
I think the chief had a question there or something or comment.
Yeah, nothing big. The ordinance allows me to order a temporary stop sign, but that's really more intended if Stein got knocked over or there was an accident and we need to do some temporary traffic controls. So I didn't want that to substitute for an order of the select board, which is why we asked just to do it a formal order.
Right.
Okay. Dan, did you vote? All right, we got everybody. Okay, next did Dustin join us? Are you gonna handle that, Kathleen?
Bill Kernan is with us.
Bill's handling that. Oh, yeah. Bill, sole source purchase for the playground equipment.
Yeah, Dustin would have joined us, but he's up in Moncton coaching baseball, so
good for him.
I'd take over for him. So yeah, this is kind of exciting. This has been in the works for a few years. I mentioned it to the board at least once before, but I know there's at least a couple new members. But when I first came here in 2016 and was doing my research in conjunction with maybe taking this job, I was extremely surprised at the resource we had in Recreation Park, but I was also put off a little bit at its condition. So for the last several years, we've been working on the tennis courts, on the pool, on the grounds themselves. We have a new pavilion, and the tot lot was part of that. So we started setting money aside for capital purchase to rebuild that. And it just so happens that this last year, Dustin worked with the Rotary Club and was able to get pretty much a 50% match on this, which we were not looking for at the time when we funded it. So it's a pretty good windfall. And there's currently 4 pieces totaling just over $23,000, less that $8,000 reimbursement through the grant. And these are specialty items. Certain ones are made by certain manufacturers and then sold regionally by certain distributors is what we're looking at. So Dustin did all the research and pricing and stuff on this, but that's where we're at. And we're also going to be relying on the Rotary Group for a bunch of labor to assist with installation. And there will be some additional costs beyond this for the perimeter fence and some other things that might total another couple $1,000s, but we're well under budget on this. So,
Questions of Bill?
I had one. It's a little bit at these conversations about, I'm very excited about this. That looks great. I was wondering if we've talked about potentially putting in a walkway so that who are using wheelchairs easily to the without.
Dustin could better speak to that since he's done more research on ADA compliance. I do believe that a grass surface and some other surfaces are ADA compliant. There is a walkway up to the tot lot itself, but as far as being all the way over to the wheelchair swing, I would defer to Dustin on that.
We'll make sure Dustin gets that question, Lindsay, because certainly having a wheelchair swing without easy access to it wouldn't make sense.
I will say, because we're so far under budget, if that either one seems to be necessary or two just seems to be desired, there's room to do that.
Okay. No other questions? Pleasure of the board.
I'll move to approve the purchase of the playground equipment requested by the Parks and Recreation Department for the tot lot at the Recreation Park under the sole source provision of the purchasing policy for a total cost of $23,417.
Second.
Any last questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify with a thumbs up. Very good. Thank you. Please thank Dustin and the Rotary. That's pretty significant support from the Rotary. That's they do a lot for the community, but that's a huge one.
I was going to say it would be nice if we could do something.
Thank you letter, baby.
A letter or thank you or something. Just thanking them for that generous donation.
Bill, you want to handle the Bob's sole source request?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I don't have it right in front of me. He had two. The one is for some cylinders on the dewatering press. What they are shelf parts in case of failure, which they did have, and they have used the ones they had on the shelf. So they need to replace their stock for that, basically. And these are cylinders that fit that specific machine. What was that? A little over $3,600, I think.
$3,987.
Yeah, that's that particular one is for the cylinders that go to the dewatering press. And because it's specific to that machine, thus it's a sole source.
Understood.
I'll move to approve the purchase of the hydraulic cylinders for the dewatering units at the wastewater treatment facility under the sole source provision of the purchasing policy for a total cost of $3,987.
Second.
Dan?
Yeah, I just have a question, being the newbie. This is a stock replenishment item, which would indicate to me that every year or so that they do this. Do we have to vote on every item that's a sole source, or why can't they just purchase it because they have to have it on the stock?
based upon the document.
Once you approve it as a sole source procurement, we can go forward from then on to make the purchases for replacement parts.
Okay.
You can approve that down up to what level, Kathleen?
I can do purchases up to $3,000.
Three. Okay.
Yeah.
We don't count each unit by itself. We have to lump them together.
Nice try, Lindsay. Thanks.
Okay, next bill was for UV lamps at the wastewater treatment facility.
Yeah, so the disinfection before the water is released is through UV. And for the past few years, we've had a pretty good deal. There was a new manufacturer out there who was trying to get their product out. We were able to use their bulbs free at the beginning and then at a reduced cost going forward. And that source has since dried up. They've basically closed shop and quit making those. So we're needing to go to the direct vendor there on this particular one, which is a pretty good increase. But it's for a total of just over $20,000. And Bob knows the life of these bulbs better than I do. I can't really recall how often it is that we have to replace them.
I'll move to approve the purchase of UV 4000 disinfection lamps for the wastewater treatment facility from Trojan UV under the sole source provision of the purchasing policy for a total cost of $20,160.
Second.
Questions on that?
I would just a note, I'm assuming, Kathleen, that part of the conversation and work around the wastewater treatment facility and modernizing it, expanding it, we might consider some other option that doesn't involve such expensive bulbs. So these 36 bulbs, is that $20,000 a year, or is that 36 bulbs last us? I know Bob's not here, but it would be interesting to know that and how much we're looking at.
We do replace a number of the bulbs on a rotating basis, Heather, and it is being looked at as part of the wastewater treatment review.
I figured that was the case. Thank you, Kathleen.
Okay, all in favor, please signify with a thumbs up. All right. Next is a request to reserve the FY20 health reimbursement accounts for use in FY21. Kathleen?
As you know, we reimburse some of the employees' medical expenses as part of our health insurance program here at the town of Middlebury. As medical services have not been available for the last few months on a routine basis, we haven't incurred all of the expenses we usually do. This is a request to simply earmark some of those funds that are remaining in the account to hold them into the next fiscal year to cover those expenses if and when they are incurred.
Questions?
I have a couple of questions.
Shoot.
I was curious, do we normally take those expenses out of like the water equipment fund, or is that just where we're seeing some surplus and that's why the recommendation? I'm just curious why it was coming out of those funds.
So we budget for those expenses in each department. So
okay.
Those are the funds that are left in that department's expenditure budget for FY20.
Okay. And so if we didn't do this, these leftover funds would just go into like the general fund balance, right? And so by doing this, we're setting them aside to use specifically for this purpose, correct?
All of our funds are budgeted for and accounted for by fund. So our water, sewer, equipment funds are
Right.
separate and remain separate.
Okay.
This is simply earmarking those funds, anticipating that it's going to be spent in that way.
Okay.
Any other questions? Pleasure of the board.
I move to approve the fiscal year-end capital improvement closeout entries as presented. Sorry, Heather.
No. No one was talking, so I figured I should. I'll second.
That's our next topic. Right?
That's the next one.
Oh,
I read the wrong one. Hold on.
It's your big chance you
sorry.
read the wrong one.
I move to approve the assignment of a total of $74,300 of the FY20 fund balance to the FY21 budget as detailed in Treasurer Jackie Sullivan's June 30th, 2020 memo to cover anticipated employee medical claims held over from fiscal year 20.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor, thumbs up. Okay. Kathleen, the capital improvement project account closeouts?
Yes, this is a year-end exercise to clean up all of our capital expenses and allocate them to the proper accounts for review by the accountants in the year-end audit. These have accumulated for a number of years and finally cleaning them up. There's a net zero change in the expenditures, just accounting for the funds expenditures properly.
Okay. I think we already have a motion in the second, but maybe we ought to try that again.
You want me to reread it?
You've got it memorized now, you should read it.
Okay, I'm going to reread it. I move to approve the fiscal year-end capital improvement closeout entries as presented.
Second.
All in favor, signify with thumbs up. Okay. Heather, you've got the check warrants?
I do. I have the check warrants.
Okay.
Under the authority granted by the Select Board on April 28th, 2020, I have reviewed and approved on behalf of the board total expenditures in the amount of $1,081,470.61, consisting of $953,065.99 for accounts payable and $128,404.62 for payroll for the period of May 27th, 2020 through June 9th, 2020. And I move the board's approval of payment of these expenditures.
Second.
That wasn't the right dates.
June 24th through July 14th.
I'm sorry. I was reading the dates on the paper that Jackie gave me earlier, and they're different from what's in the packet. I'm sorry. So I'll amend my motion to make the period June 24th, 2020 to July 14th, 2020. Sorry about that.
And we had a second on the friendly amendment?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, signify with thumbs up. Okay. Kathleen, Town Manager's report.
Okay. The board's June 9th endorsement of Bill Kernan's proposal for repairs to be made to Creek Road that would enable its reopening kicked off a brief flurry of community posts on Front Porch Forum, largely speaking in opposition to the plan. I also received a number of emails and voicemail messages and from a handful of concerned citizens, and in anticipation of future public process to gather formal community input on the future of Creek Road, sent each the following reply. Thank you for your comments regarding the Creek Road, the Select Board's June 9th decision to reopen Creek Road. The town of Middlebury has struggled with what to do about the impact Otter Creek is having on Creek Road for a number of years. After a large-scale engineering study and work by the Creek Road Task Force appointed by the Select Board, unfortunately, there's still no clear or inexpensive solution. Currently, Creek Road is a Class 3 roadway. According to state law, unless it is reclassified, it must remain open to traffic. In light of this, the town is undertaking limited work to make the road safe to reopen until a more permanent solution is found. The Select Board is committed to working with all stakeholders moving forward to find the best solution for the community. We are collecting all of the input we received on this subject and will be sharing them with the board. You can find additional information regarding the Creek Road Task Force recommendation to reopen the road and the record of the Select Board's discussion on the Town of Middlebury's website with a link provided. That's my report on Creek Road. The proposed 2021 Neighbors Together budget is in your packet, along with a budget narrative provided by BNP Director Karen Duguay. In a July voice message to me, Irene Barna conveyed her sincere thanks and gratitude to the Select Board, town staff, and others involved in placing the large electronic sign on Seymour Street at the approach to the Pulp Mill Bridge that warns drivers of oversized vehicles about the bridge. And then finally, your summary of current correspondence is enclosed. That's all I have.
Thank you, Kathleen. Any questions of Kathleen? How was the vacation?
Oh, it was awesome. Thank you.
Good. You look fresh.
I am in quarantine at home, and I've been getting intermittent internet connection warnings. So I'm glad to have made it through for the most part.
That explains. I called your office 3 times today to review a couple things, and I should have left a message so that you would get it. I'm sorry. Heather, you had a question for
I did, and then you got talking about vacation, and I forgot. What was the last thing you mentioned? Irene. So is Bill still on? There was another piece to the bridge, the covered bridge thing. We were going to do something that hung down over. Did that get installed too? Something that was fairly simple and not very expensive? Or a bar or something?
I don't know, Heather. I'll follow up and report back.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kathleen.
Okay, board member concerns. Victor?
Nothing, well, I have a lot of concerns. I would hope maybe the next meeting we could go back to meeting in person, if that could be arranged. It's very hard to discuss some of these topics electronically. That's all.
Thank you, Victor. Dan?
Yeah, I agree with Victor, but I also want to say Irene Barna also called me. She sits next to me in choir in church, and she was just over the moon about that sign and left a really wonderful voicemail for me. So I just wanted to recognize that also.
Heather?
A couple things on the Creek Road correspondence and comments on Front Porch Forum. For anyone listening, I would remind you in the interim of the 18 miles of TAM trails that we have at our disposal in the town of Middlebury, as far as walking and walking your dog and bird watching and communing with nature. I do understand the draw to Creek Road, and hope at some point we will obviously have a more permanent and final decision down there. But in the meantime, while it's opened up to traffic, we do have plenty of other options in the town of Middlebury that I would encourage people to use. Also, I just want to do a brief shout out to the library, to Dana and to all of her staff, Trisha and Renee, putting together the same summer reading program. The outdoor pickup thing is just fabulous. Even though the times of day are a little difficult when you're working, it's still great that I can go there and get library books. It's not quite the same as going in and browsing, but I just really appreciate the creativity and the extra effort they've gone through to still make library materials available to everyone. So just a shout out to the library folks and a big thank you there.
Excellent. Lindsay?
Yeah, I was going to say, definitely a lot of people seem to have the view that they can't downtown at all, that there's no way to get there. I know it's all being handled, but
So Lindsay, you were breaking up a bit.
Make those routes, anything more we can do to make those routes there.
Yeah. So is it my internet or Lindsay's? Is everyone else having trouble hearing her too?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Lindsay's, but I think what she's talking about is signs showing that the downtown is still open. If you come back, Lindsay.
Brian, she was saying that even with the signs, people still thought it was closed downtown.
That's what I was thinking. So, any ideas on where there should be some signs then, maybe that aren't there, Lindsay?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Nothing specific. I already are. Just consider it an evolving process, and if we need to move things, then move them. And I'm to make it clear that they can check Experience Middlebury for up-to-date information on downtown shops. That was all.
Okay. So I do think that Neighbors Together and everyone's trying to put out the word that it's still open, but maybe we would just double down and make sure that word's getting out.
Brian, one thing that came to mind when Lindsay was talking was about the possibility of getting some yard signs like downtown is open, lots of parking available like we did for the elections. And those were well received for people that don't get our email blasts and such, and are highly visible if we put them like at Court Square and other places around town.
Talking about sandwich boards?
Kind of a low cost approach.
Yeah.
Just a little, if you have a candidate sign or something like that you put on your lawn, that's more what I was thinking about.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was what I had in mind. So more more of a
We
good
can do
thing.
that.
Yeah, I agree. You need something bigger that says the town is open. The signs are fine if you're walking and you come upon them, but it really, I think you need something more visible. Yeah.
On the big electronic signs, like across from the Chevrolet dealer, as you're heading north into Middlebury, it says something about detour ahead and the date. Could they add a screen that says, there's a lot of visibility of that sign as you come down the hill? Could they add a screen on that says business is open, or, you know, something right on that electronic sign?
I'll look
I
into
really
that.
like that idea.
Okay. If nothing more than to be able to hear people's sentences completely, it would be nice to be back together. We had quite a few people having challenges with the internet. It wasn't just you, Lindsay. Fred was broken up quite a bit in his presentation. Kathleen's had problems with it. We're struggling on some evenings. It appears that some of our meetings go smooth, and then tonight we had a lot of problems with the internet. So we meet again on the 28th. It's going to be a very packed meeting with a lot of actions that we need to take. So be prepared. That's one of the biggest things is the college. And so I want to invite everybody to, all the community, to tune in for our July 28th Select Board meeting, where the college will present their plan to host students' return to campus and how they plan to mitigate risk and to deal with potential threats. We will give the college an opportunity to go through their plan and then open it up for questions and answers. And that will take a big chunk of our meeting alone. There's been a number of letters and condemnations, and I'm not sure that anybody's even given them a fair shot at understanding what the entirety of the plan is yet before we judge it. So I'd like to make sure that people are in the community are aware of that opportunity and tune in. And with that in mind, I've also written, we've submitted a brief op-ed to the Addy Indy promoting it so that people can mark their calendars and join us. I hope we have at least 50 people for this one as well, based upon the number of letters we get. So if there are no other questions, I'll seek a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? All right, unanimous. 8:40. Have a good evening, everyone.
All right.
You too.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you.